Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for our PAL 101 session. My name is Alexis Patnode, and I'm an advisor service trainer here at RPAG. So let's go ahead and take a look at our agenda. So first, we will cover what PAL is and how it works. So an overview of how data syncs from record keepers to our RPAG portal. Then we will cover the step-by-step process of how to accept PAL feeds, downloading the consent forms, and so forth. Then we will cover best practices for onboarding plans, some tips and tricks to ensure a smooth PAL connection is made, and to avoid any delays. And then we will talk about monitoring and managing PAL feeds, so some best practices in taking a look at your PAL feeds, learning where to check statuses. And then lastly, we will end with a Q&A. So first, what is PAL? So PAL, or Plan Asset Link, is a process in which plan level data is synced between record keepers and the RPAG Advisor portal. This process saves advisors countless hours of work having to go to record keeper websites, having to pull that plan lineup and asset information, and then manually having to enter it into the RPAG portal. So PAL provides the capability for plan lineups and assets to be synced on a monthly basis, depending on record keeper, to give you accurate and up-to-date information. So to give some insight on how PAL works on our end, first, record keepers on a monthly basis send over 480 data files to our system that need to get uploaded. Then, with all of those files, our dedicated PAL team processes them and then also maps over 10,000 new funds that again come in on that monthly basis. Once all of those files and funds have been mapped, our members are able to receive their plan level data by the 20th day of the following month. We always say by the 20th day. Sometimes it is a little bit sooner, but that does vary between record keepers. So let's go ahead and take a look at our PAL process before we break down each step. As a reminder, depending on how you access RPAG, you may or may not need PAL consent forms. However, the majority of our users do use PAL consent forms. So to get your plan connected with PAL, the first step is determining whether or not we have a relationship with that specific record keeper, which I will show you how to determine that. Then you will need to download a consent form in association to that record keeper. Once that information is filled out, it should be submitted to our dedicated PAL team, which is pal@rpag.com. Our PAL team will then collect that consent form, process it with the record keeper, and then set up your PAL link, which will then be able to be accepted, and you will be able to use your plan level data on a month-to-month basis for different reporting features within the RPAG portal. So first, we'll go ahead and take a look at our PAL overview and provider list. Again, this is going to be what providers we have PAL relationships with. So on the left-hand side, you'll see we have a list of all of our providers. This page is available within our resource center, and I will be showing you how to find this page a little bit later. It also is updated quite frequently, so it is always good if you have previously downloaded this PAL overview and provider list to check out our resource center and see an up-to-date version. We are actively trying to make PAL connections as often as we can. So again, always good to make sure you have an up-to-date copy of this list. You'll see that the feed type across all providers is monthly. And then we have some additional notes on the right-hand side, again, record keeper specific. So a couple to keep in mind is some providers do only provide PAL feeds for specific plan types, so double check there. And then secondly, some providers do not report zero asset funds, which we do have a little workaround for that that I will be covering a little bit later as well. We also have the matrix and mid-Atlantic lists here. So if you did not see your provider on the previous PAL provider overview list, it is always good to double check this matrix and mid-Atlantic list, because if your plan is custodied by either them too, then they are actually able to still get PAL feeds. So again, double checking this list to see if your record keeper is available here will let you know. And also, if you do find it within either of these two columns, you will need to use their consent forms. So as an example, if you found your record keeper within Mid-Atlantic column, you will need to use the Mid-Atlantic consent form, and it works the same for Matrix with the Matrix consent form. So after you've determined whether we do have a PAL relationship with your provider, you will need to find the consent form to get it filled out. So to find our consent forms, we've actually made it quite easy for you. If you select the menu button in the top left-hand corner of your RPAG screen and look in the PAL Asset Link section, which is right below, you will see a button for consent forms, which will actually take you directly to the consent forms folder within our resource center. So if you do decide to access this folder through Resource Center, you can click that Resource Center button in your quick links, and it will also take you to the Resource Center where you're able to find these forms. You'll notice all PAL consent forms are in alphabetical order, sorted by record keeper. To download any of these forms, you are able to do so by simply clicking on the tile. It will download directly to your computer. Please make sure that you have your pop-up blockers allowed so you are able to get that download directly to your computer, but that is where you will find it. This is an example of a general PAL consent form. You'll notice here, well, this one is not labeled, but typically when you do download a consent form from our resource center, it will have the vendor pre-filled in that line, and you'll also see the logo of the record keeper in the top right-hand corner. We have white labeled these PAL consent form pages, so you are able to add a customization factor. If you'd like to add your own firm's logo in there, you are welcome to do so. First, you'll need to fill out the name of plan, plan number, or contract number. The vendor, again, will be filled out, and then the advisor of broker of record. Please make sure you double check that this information matches that of the record keeper's website, because that is how we get your plans connected. In the middle here, we actually have our information disclosure and the notice of consent. And then at the bottom here, we have a section for the plan administrator's signature where they can put their name, title, and date. We do accept DocuSign for all record keepers and other e-signature platforms as well, besides Nationwide. So Nationwide is the only record keeper that does require a wet signature to submit. So again, DocuSign for all record keepers except for Nationwide. So after the PAL consent form is filled out and submitted, there are a few dates to keep in mind. So every month after our PAL team receives these consent forms, they process them and then send them to the record keepers on a monthly basis, which all record keepers have specific timelines. So Fidelity, John Hancock, and TIAA, PAL consent forms are needed by 10 business days before month end. So that's when we submit to those specific record keepers. And then all other record keepers, consent forms are needed 5 business days before month end. So if your consent form is sent in before the cutoff, you're able to expect to see the PAL link by the 20th day of the following month. Again, by the 20th day, sometimes it is a little bit sooner, depending on record keeper. If the submission does not meet the cutoff, so if you submit it at the very beginning of the month, or maybe you miss the deadline for that specific record keeper, our PAL team will let you know when you're able to expect that link. Typically, it is going to be the month following. So after we've submitted that PAL form, while we're waiting, what data can we expect to be pulled in by PAL? So investments and asset balances, so all of your funds and all of their balances will be pulled in by PAL across all record keepers, as well as provider. So you'll notice when you are taking a look at your investment card after a PAL feed has come in, the provider is already selected in there for you. You will need to select the product. Please keep that in mind, but the provider will be pre-filled. And then we do offer additional data points for select providers. So on the right-hand side here, this chart is also available within our PAL provider overview. You'll see that we do have specific providers that contribute additional information. So advisor compensation, plan tax ID, participant count, and plan type, you can expect to see fed in by the providers within this list if they have a check mark associated. So after a form is submitted, you should have an idea of when the PAL feed will be available. However, it's always a good idea to check out the PAL widget on the landing page. So when you log into RPAG, you should see a landing page similar to the one on the screen here. And on the right-hand side, you have the PAL widget. The PAL widget actually breaks down all of your plans. So we have our plans that have been accepted, meaning the PAL link was connected. We already went in and accepted them. We have the links that are needing to be accepted here in teal, and then our plans that are not yet on PAL. So if you log into RPAG and you know you've submitted some PAL forms and you're expecting PAL feeds and you see any plans in teal here, it's a great indicator that action needs to be taken and we need to go in and accept our PAL feeds. So you can do so a couple different ways. First, you can click on the arrow icon in the top right-hand corner here, and that will take you to Manage PAL Feeds. You can also click Menu, then Manage PAL Feeds within your menu as well if you'd like. It will also take you to that same Manage PAL Feeds page. And this will show you a list of all of your plans in the system that are connected to PAL. So again, thinking about that widget we just took a look at, any plans that have already been accepted, as well as your plans that need to be accepted, will appear on this list. Any plans that have not yet been connected to PAL, or if it's the first time that it's going to be connected to PAL and it hasn't been connected yet, you will not see it within this list. So on the left, we have our client name. You will also see additional information such as advisor of record and plan type, contract ID, a column for auto sync, plan lineup sync, and then PAL feed assets as update. So again, in this case, currently we are looking for the plans that need their PAL links accepted. So there's a couple columns that we'll want to focus on. First, plan lineup synced is going to let you know when your PAL lineup was accepted. So here, the boxes with check marks as well as the dates, it's an indicator that lineup has already been accepted and what date it was accepted. All of the boxes that do not have check marks within that plan lineup synced column are going to be the ones that we need to go in and accept that PAL feed for. The second column that we're going to want to take a look at is going to be the PAL feed assets as of date. So the PAL feed assets as of date in this case is all 331. That is because that is the most up-to-date feeds that are available. And that's also because it's a little past the 20th day of the month. So if we were to have looked at this a couple weeks ago, maybe mid-April here, we might have seen PAL feeds for the previous month in this list rather than just as of 331. So again, keeping that in mind. Now, once we've determined that we have an up-to-date PAL feed available and there's no checkbox in our plan lineup synced, you can actually access your PAL feed directly from this page by clicking on the contract ID of the plan. So you'll see they're all underlined in blue here. Clicking on that will take you directly to PAL feed mapping, which is essentially where you will accept your PAL feed. You can also access PAL feed mapping from your client page. So if you click client/prospect and you select a client and you see an orange PAL feed within that plan, it's an indicator that action needs to be taken. So anytime you see this orange PAL dot, it's letting you know that there's a PAL feed available and it is needing to be accepted. So clicking on that will also take you to your PAL feed mapping page. So again, PAL feed mapping, where you will review all of your funds that are fed in by the plan. On the top right-hand side, we do have a key that lets you know what each color means. So all of your funds that are showing in green are going to be funds that were read by the PAL feed, but were not in the existing lineup. So these are going to be all of your new funds. In red, we will see all funds that were removed from the lineup. So these are going to be funds that were previously in the existing lineup. Maybe they got traded or taken out of the lineup, we would see those in red. Funds manually matched by user, we will see in teal. That in that case, if we manually match two funds together, we would see it appear there in teal. And then for funds that were in the existing lineup that had a direct match, meaning it was in the previous lineup and is now in the current lineup, we will see in white. And then we have the user lock action icon. And if you click on that little question mark icon, it will actually pop up with this message as well. As we saw on the PAL provider overview list, some record keepers do not report funds with zero assets. Now, this is the little workaround. So if you're wanting your plan to show those funds with zero assets in later PAL feeds, you can actually select that option from the drop-down menu, and then using the user locked action icon, lock it in. So in your future PAL feeds, the system will read that fund still in the lineup, even though it has zero assets and that specific record keeper is not reporting it. So a great feature to use there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the actual funds now. So first, you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, we have a drop-down menu with dates. So the system automatically defaults to the most recently available PAL feed. So again, in this case, it's going to be 3/31. But you'll also see we have previous dates as well. So in the case of this plan, we may not have accepted the PAL feed for a while, which is why we have additional feeds that are available. If we wanted to map to a previous PAL feed, we are able to by just selecting from that dropdown that previous date. One thing to keep in mind is you can go forwards, but you cannot go backwards. So if we decided today to go with 131 data, tomorrow we could go in and decide to do 331 data. But if we decide today that we're going to do 331 data, tomorrow we would not have any of these additional options, so we would not be able to go backwards in time there. So again, something to keep in mind while you're accepting your PAL feeds. Next, we'll go ahead and take a look at all of our funds in green. You will see on the right-hand side, there is action icon where you'll see a few drop downs. So you do have two options with all of your funds that have recently been added to the lineup. That's going to be accept new fund and reject new fund. So accept new fund is the default. These are all the new funds that were read by PAL. If there's a fund that was added to your lineup that you did not add to your lineup, you are technically able to reject the fund. However, we do recommend reaching out to our PAL team to make sure that there is no additional discrepancies. So again, pal@rpag.com, or you are able to manually override that. Now we'll go ahead and take a look at our funds that are up for removal. So again, remove current fund is going to be the automatic default in the dropdown. You'll actually notice for the funds that are being removed, we have an additional selection option from our dropdown menu. So remove current fund is going to, again, default. The system is removing that fund from the lineup. It is not read in the feed. Keep current fund with zero assets. That will indicate the lock icon, which we'll take another look at in just one moment. And then keep current fund and assets. So keep current fund and assets is not going to lock this in for future PAL feeds. It's going to lock it in for the current PAL feed. So if there's a fund in your lineup that you're wanting to keep, you can select that option. And then when the PAL feed is accepted and you're looking at your investments, you'll see that fund in that lineup. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at some funds that are up for removal with zero assets. So again, with record keepers, some of them do not report funds with zero assets. That may be a reason why it is in red. Another reason could be because it was actually removed out of the lineup. So again, please take that into consideration when you see your funds in here with zero assets. If we take a look at that drop-down menu and we were to keep current fund with zero assets, so making that selection, you'll see that the lock icon appears on the right-hand side. Clicking on that lock icon will turn it into a locked lock rather than right now where it's unlocked. So keep that in mind, click on it, and then you'll want to save it, which will then allow for future PAL feeds to include that fund with the zero balance. So now at the very bottom of the PAL feed mapping, you will see all of your funds in white here that were matched. So again, these are funds that are staying the same throughout your lineup. You will see on the right-hand side, you'll have the new balance. So it looks like this second fund here does have a new balance. Again, even though it's in white, it's still updating the assets for us. And then at the very bottom here, we have 3 buttons. So first, reset. Reset is going to reset the entire mapping back to what was showing when that PAL feed first came in. So if you made changes to the PAL feed mapping, you do not want to click reset unless you want to start fresh, which then you would want to click reset. The next option is edit asset values. This button does allow you to edit asset values in your existing lineup. So for funds that are being transferred over into the new PAL feed, you are able to do so from this section. You can also make this adjustment in the investments card. And then save mapping, which is what we are going to want to select to move on to the next step where we can actually confirm our PAL feed mapping. So now we have our summary of PAL update. This is your chance to overview all of the changes that you might have made, as well as any changes that are occurring because of the PAL feed. So here in red, again, we have all the funds that are being removed. In white, all the funds that are staying the same. And then lastly, in green, all of our new funds. You do have a column for previous asset values as well as a column for updated asset values. So a good comparison to see how your fund changed from from the existing lineup to the new lineup. If you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see the totals again for the comparison purposes, and then you'll also see 3 additional buttons. Back is going to take you back to the previous page. So if you notice a change was needing to be made, but it wasn't made, you are able to click back and that will take you there. You'll also see auto sync. So AutoSync is a feature that we have available that automatically accepts your fund lineup for future PAL feeds, as long as there's no fund changes. So you are able to turn this on monthly or quarterly, depending on your preference. The system does default to monthly, keep that in mind. But what will happen is when the next PAL feed comes in, as long as there were no fund changes, the system will automatically accept the PAL feed, making it so you do not need to go back through the process of accepting and confirming your PAL feed. You do need to turn on auto sync before a plan is confirmed or accepted, because you cannot turn on auto sync afterwards. So again, auto sync first and then confirm second. So once we've clicked confirm, it's going to leave you on the summary of PAL update page. The one difference being that it will now give you a date of the last PAL update. So that'll be an indicator that your PAL feed has been accepted and is now showing up-to-date feed. Another indicator is going to be on your plan details page or on your client page. So you'll see now a blue link or a navy blue circle with a link in it. That is indicating that your plan has been accepted, connected to PAL, and is linked with the most up-to-date assets and funds. We will also see on our manage PAL feeds now, there is a check mark within the plan lineup synced, as well as the date it was synced. PAL feed assets as of date, again, is not going to change because that's letting us know what the most recent PAL feed is available. And then in the auto sync enabled column, we should also see a check if we turned that on. If you did not turn it on, you'll actually see that it does get grayed out because again, you can only turn on auto sync before the plan is accepted. You are able to go backwards though. So if you turn on auto sync and then later on decide that you don't want auto sync turned on anymore, or you'd like to change it from monthly to quarterly, you are able to do so within this auto sync section here. You'll also see if you hover over that question mark icon, it will give you an explanation of auto sync in case you'd like a reminder. So once your plan has been accepted, you've checked auto sync, and you also see that your plan lineup has been synced as well as the date. You'll want to know some best practices. So again, here are some best practices for ensuring a smooth PAL connection is made. When you are building out your client's contract number, or when you're building out your clients, provider is a required data field with an asterisk. So the system requires you to fill out that data point before creating the client, whereas contract number is not, but it is highly, highly recommended as that is how we are able to connect your plans to PAL. So when you're creating your clients, be sure to add in that contract number. Secondly, if your contract number ever changes, so if your plan changes provider or if it changes platform and that comes with a contract number change, you will need a new consent form and you will also need to update that information within your client's page. So making sure you're going in and keeping your client's data up to date is definitely necessary if we want to keep those PAL feeds connections connecting. Next, complete consent forms and submit to pal@rpag.com, keeping in mind the deadlines. A lot of times we will receive PAL consent forms to support@rpag.com, which is fine, but we then do have to forward them to pal@rpag.com. So sometimes that does add additional time. So submitting to pal@rpag.com will mitigate that extra step. And then keeping in mind those designated dates, so getting them in by each of the record keepers' deadlines to keep that connection efficient. Using autosync to save time accepting feeds. Again, autosync causes you to not need to go through the steps to accept the feed, so using it is a huge time saver. Make sure that you are locking in $0 assets first. So if you do use that lock function, please turn that on before autosync. And then also, again, autosync must be turned on before the PAL feed is accepted. PAL fixes need to be made before saving mappings. So if there is an issue with your feed or any changes that need to be made, please make them before you save your mapping. Because again, saving the mapping is going to override your, or make it so your plan is up to date. So you'll want to make any of those fixes or changes before you save your mapping. Reaching out to pal@rpag.com if you have any issues there, they will be able to help you. And then lastly, if a PAL feed does not come through for that month, keep in mind that the PAL will continue to request that link until the connection is made. So if a plan does not get linked, you can reach out to our PAL team to see when it will be linked, but also keep in mind that they are proactively requesting that link until the connection is made. So next we'll go ahead and talk about monitoring PAL connections. So a great way to monitor PAL connections besides keeping an eye on the graph on your landing page that lets you know PALs have been accepted versus not is actually through advisor reports. So if you click menu and then advisor reports underneath practice management, we do actually have an advisor report that is going to let you know if your plan is connected to PAL or not. Advisor reports does allow you to generate reports across your entire book of business. So underneath assets under advisement, using the sub-report plan, you'll see after you click apply, you'll have all of your clients as well as their PAL status, so a yes or no in the PAL column. You'll also see assets as of date. This is a great indicator to show if your plan is connected to PAL, but the assets as of date is out of date, to go in and connect or accept that PAL feed. This data is able to be exported via Excel, simply clicking on that export button. Please note that this page here, so advisor reports, does take overnight to load. So download this report before you go in and accept all of your PAL feeds is best practice. Or if you do make a lot of changes to PAL, checking advisor reports the following morning will give you the most up-to-date data within advisor reports here. Next, we'll go ahead and take a look at our PAL resources. So within the Resource Center, if you go to the Plan Asset Link category, that will actually give you the ability to take a look at the PAL overview and provider list, which is the document we were looking at to see the PAL process, as well as take a look at what providers we have relationships with. We also have the PAL description for plan sponsors. So since those consent forms are needing to be signed by plan administrator, plan sponsor, you are able to download this PAL description, which is a great way to explain to your plan sponsors what PAL is and why you're needing their signature. And then also we have a how to accept PAL links document, which is a step-by-step process of how to go in and accept PAL links. Again, all of these resources are available within the PAL Plan Asset Link or PAL folder within the Resource Center, and clicking on any of these tiles will download them directly to your computer. All right, so now that we've walked through those processes, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the advisor portal so we can go ahead and take a look at how to accept these PAL feeds in action. So here we are. We have our PAL client here. So again, starting from the landing page, this is our demo client. So our PAL widget is a little bit different than yours should look like. Clicking on client/prospect will allow us to select our client. This is our PAL 101 client. If we scroll down, we will see plan cards available for this client. And again, PAL logos in orange are indicating that action needs to be taken. And then in blue is indicating a link has already been made. So this plan has already been accepted here. We'll go ahead and click on our PAL logo, which will then take us to our PAL feed mapping page. Here, it looks like we can map to previous dates if we would like, just by simply clicking on that new date. There we go, 3/31. We have all of the funds in our lineup that are new to the plan. Maybe we'd like to reject a couple funds here. We have our plans that are being removed from the fund or from the lineup. Again, keeping current funds with 0 assets is going to allow us to lock it in if we want to keep it for later PAL feeds. And then scrolling to the very bottom here, we have all of our funds that matched. Again, you can match funds if you'd like. So if maybe our fund up here should match to our fund here, we can drag and drop it in there. And it is user matched now. Of course, these funds don't exactly match, but for the case of this demo, you can also lock that in. So in future PAL feeds, the system will read when this fund is entered in the lineup. Since it's not red, it actually should be this fund here on the right. And then at the very bottom here, edit asset values, as I had mentioned, would allow you to change asset values within your funds. Save mapping is going to take us to our summary of PAL update page, where we are able to, again, hover over any question mark icons to see exactly what the feature does, select auto sync if we would like, and then confirm. So now we have our last PAL update as of today's date. And if we click go back to plan details, we will see a blue link within our investments card. Any PAL related issues or things occurring within PAL, any discrepancies there, please reach out to our dedicated PAL team. So PAL@rpag.com. They are going to be your best contact for PAL. You also have our support team available for any other portal related needs or questions. So that is going to be support@rpag.com.